Good morning. I am Andrew Whaley, and today we're going to explore one of the most famous stories in the Bible. It's also one of the most disturbing stories in the Bible, the story of Noah and his ark. We're going to actually read today just from the very end of that story. So I invite you now to hear from Genesis chapter 8, verses 20 to 22. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelt the pleasing odor, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of humankind, for the inclination of the human heart is evil from youth, nor will I ever again destroy every living creature as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. So we are in our Built on a Rock series right now, looking at ways that rocks and stones are important in the stories of the Bible. And today's story, the altar that Noah builds, is an altar of stone on which he sacrifices to God an offering of gratitude for being saved from the flood. Now, this story troubles a lot of us because it makes us question, we teach this story to children mainly so that they'll learn about all the different animals, but it troubles us because God chooses to wipe out everyone on the earth except for one man and his family. What kind of good God is that? It's a legitimate question, but I think it helps us to think about the story of the flood in the Hebrew Bible compared to other flood stories of the ancient world. You see, in many ancient cultures, there were stories of a great flood, and they told it in different ways. In some cases, all of humanity is wiped out. In other cases, the flood itself brings life from nothing in some cosmic struggle. But all of them are trying to answer a question that humans have as part of their life experience. We see these huge storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, and in ancient times, the question was, is our God causing this to happen? Is God doing this to try to tell us something, teach us something, punish us for something? Gods of thunder and lightning, gods of the sea, gods of the harvest. This was common in the time of the Hebrew people. So in our particular story, how did the Hebrew people tell this story in a way that reveals something about the character of their God? So what we find is here is Noah with stone and sacrifice offering his gratitude to God. And we read that when God smells the odor of the sacrifice, God is pleased and God makes a covenant with the creation. God says, never again will I use my power over the natural world to destroy it. God says, I'm going to hang my bow in the clouds. God will no longer be against humanity through the means of weather or natural disaster. This is of critical importance for us even today. Genesis 8 teaches us that God does not use natural disaster to punish or to extend God's wrath over people. God has the power to do it, but has chosen from ancient times not to use it this way. This distinguishes the Hebrews' God from other gods of the thunder and the seas and the storms. It also distinguishes the God we know from the way our God is sometimes portrayed. This then leads us to a series of questions, therefore. When there are natural disasters, why do they happen? Well, if we have to take God's wrath being poured out off the list of possibilities, because Genesis 8 tells us that God doesn't do that, then maybe we have to think about why is it that communities are built in a way that the poorest people have to inhabit floodplains or areas that are most susceptible to hurricane damage or earthquakes or tornadoes. What does it say about hubris of humanity that we would build massive beach resorts right on the coastline, right in the path of hurricanes? And then, of course, what does it say when these events start happening with more frequency, major fires, floods, hurricanes, snowstorms. If it's not God's wrath because we're more wicked than ever, maybe it's something that we're doing to bring it about. If God isn't doing it, we're forced to look at ourselves. This climate transformation that is happening through human endeavor, this is not God's punishment. This is the just rewards of the way we've chosen to build our life, and it reflects our willingness to adapt to the future. Noah marked this moment of his revelation with an altar, with stones and with sacrifice. May we also learn a lesson in this moment. May we be a people who have the courage to repent, to examine our priorities, our decision-making, our systems and structures and priorities. We can't blame the weather on God's will. The Bible tells us not to. So instead, may we look for the ways God is calling us to be caretakers of one another and caregivers to this earth that God so loves.